So today we're going to be taking a look at my living room aquarium 6 months on. This was an aquarium that I wanted to set up for a very long time. I had the idea to create like a houseplant filtered aquarium ages ago when I started to really play around with the houseplants in my fish room. I moved into this house the end of last year, and this is my living room, and I instantly saw the potential for like a really nice big green tank. Now, this is only a 4-foot tank. It's not a huge aquarium, but it suits the space really, really well. When I set this tank up, the plan was actually to create like more of a biotope of Northbrook Creek, which I've been to a few times. And the idea was to have like this huge, big back rock wall and to incorporate these little mountain yabbies that we found up there. I went out with my friend Jason and Harlan, and we went and collected some of those yabbies outside the national park. And we collected a bunch of rocks and stuff from around the area as well, obviously outside National Park as well, and set up the tank before I went on my USA trip early this year. About a week before I left for the trip, I had the tank all set up. There was yabbies in here, and I don't think I had any plants in here yet. We might have just had moss, and the idea was just to create like a yabby tank. The idea was basically to have roots coming down over the tops of the rocks, no plants because the yabbies would eat them, but it'd be cool to have like yabbies in the living room. I came home from a little getaway on a weekend, and the yabbies were all doing perfectly fine in here, but I think a big rainstorm came over Brisbane, and over that rainstorm, it must have just triggered something in the yabbies to move, and I found yabbies all over my house. I found about 10 over the house. Unfortunately, a few did die. Lesson learned. There were tiny yabbies, and I've had yabbies escape before, but I didn't realize they could push up these glass lids so well. It's either they came out the glass lids, or I've also got an egg crate back where they probably came up outside of that. But it was weird because they didn't escape for like 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden a rainstorm comes over and they all escaped. I even came home and opened my front door downstairs and saw like a dead yabby at the front door. So it was like a murder scene. Obviously I felt horrible about it, and I knew that I needed to pivot. So we took the yabbies out and we decided that we were going to do a planted tank. And from there, I thought that it'd probably be good to do like a Luminatus and a Praecox tank. These are two of my favorite New Guinea species. So the Luminatus are a pseudomogul, and I've been breeding a ton of them, so I added them to the tank. And I wanted to do Praecox as well because I think they're probably one of the nicest rainbow fish. So I went ahead and added those, I think, and we planted it out. I got a bunch of really nice plants from the shop. Some bucephalandras, some Ponemogitans, some Anubiuses, crypts, and swords. Planted it out, and we were off, we were ready to go. So I went away for a month, and I came back, and I left my dad in charge to take care of the house while I was gone. He just was meant to pop by every couple of days, and he failed to let me know that the tank didn't have the light on. Something happened with the electrical, something shorted in the house, and the light never turned back on for this tank. And the filter also didn't turn back on. And I came back and I looked in this tank, all the lights were off. I just looked in the cracks of one of these rocks and I saw these two claws come in underneath the rock, and I knew that there were still yabbies in here. So I didn't catch all the yabbies out. And because the lights were off, the plants had melted terribly, and the yabbies had just feasted on some of my nicest plants that I've been culturing at the shop. So I had like these big bucephalandras, like the ones you can see here in the middle. They were completely ripped apart to pieces. Pretty much all the plants actually were fucked from that. So I fixed the light issue, and I put a few more plants in here, and I just let the tank settle in. I took the yabbies out, that was painful, and I let it settle in. These roots grew down like crazy, so I've kind of gone off the concept here. That was the story of the tank, and from there I've let it grow out. So the way this tank's set up, it's a 4-footer. The front is got glass panels, and the back's got this egg crate, which we built in to stab little stems of pothos through and other house plants. So we've got some philodendrons here, some pothos, which has gone nuts and growing really, really well. We've also got some mini monsteras, some Swiss cheese plants. I've also added some, I think this might be dead now, but this is some Spanish moss that I added. There's like 1 or 2 tillandsias on this piece of driftwood. We attached the floodlights in here. So these are just cheap Arlic floodlights, which you can get from your hardware store. They were like 30 bucks. Any floodlight works. And the idea is to continue to let these houseplants just go nuts and grow up all over this piece of driftwood and kind of like all around the living room actually. I've never pruned any of the plants yet, so this is the 6 months of growth that you're seeing here from the start, I think it's quite a lot of growth and it's only gonna get more. I've got a heater in here because it's now winter, so the tank runs at about 23 degrees Celsius. We collected all the stuff from the creek and we used this is as low tech as it gets. There's no CO2. I use a little bit of hydroponic fertilizer from a really suspect hydroponics shop out in an industrial area. So I'm guessing it's really good for growing pot, but it's also really good for growing house plants and aquarium plants, and it's shrimp safe. And we also used really cheap root tabs as well, and it seems to have worked really well. We're 6 months in now, and it's really settled in. Some of my favorite things about this tank is there's been an absolute boom in the population of the shrimp. So we added 20 shrimp at the start, and there'd easily be triple digit shrimps in here now, in the hundreds. Pretty much everywhere you look, you can see shrimps. So they bred really well, and I think normally you wouldn't get an abundant population of shrimp like this in a tank like this, I don't think. But because it's so, I think decently well set up with the roots coming down and the rocks, there's heaps of places for the babies to hide when they're born. The adult praecocks don't eat cherry shrimp because they're too big. They'll definitely eat the babies. And I think that the babies can obviously hide well enough in here to maintain a population, and they've bred really well. I also added some hill stream loaches in here. So there's 5 hill stream loaches. To be honest, I haven't seen them do that great. I've been feeding it bug buffet every day and I mush it up into a powder in here, and they definitely do eat it, but I haven't seen them grow so much or really do that fantastic. They've just kind of been surviving in here. I added some Otto Cinclus as well. The Ottos have done actually really well. I thought they were gonna be bad when I first added them because I couldn't get them to start eating the green cuisine or the bug buffet. There must have just been enough biofilm in here to get them through, and now they just eat bug buffet like crazy. And I've actually seen them start to get really fat and plump, and I'm gonna probably be able to use them for breeding at some point if I can catch them out of here. Like I said earlier, I've got the praecocks in here. I've also got the Luminatus. Haven't had really any losses of them. I bred all these fish. The praecocks right now are kind of wigging out. It's nighttime, so I think they're sort of sleeping. But when they flare up, normally about 9 AM, the light comes on at, I think 7 AM or 6 AM. A couple hours after the light comes on, they're flaring up to each other and they look absolutely fantastic. So it's really cool to come here with a coffee and watch the tank. But they are really cool. There's also one peppermint bristlenose in here. Just kind of randomly added him to for the sake of it. And my plan from here is to maybe start to add a few more fish. I'm probably gonna add some threadfin rainbows in here because they're another nice, really cool rainbow fish. I think I'm just gonna slowly start adding random things to this tank and seeing what happens. Something that's really cool is the moss. This is some native moss. I think this might be Northbrook moss or it's Ficedon's moss, but we got it from the creek and it did really poorly. Obviously it didn't like not having light for a month, but since the lights come back, all of the plants bounced back really well. This Ponegeton went completely melted and you can see now it's got some nice big leaves and it's starting to spread along the tank. I'm not a plant guy, so I'm just kind of starting to get into plants, but these are Wendii crypts. They're just the brown ones, I think. I've got a lotus in here, which is, it's doing okay. I think it's gonna do better come summer when it's a little bit warmer. I think they don't like the cooler waters so much, so I don't know, it's done okay. The other thing I could do is add maybe a root tab under there and it could do okay. I've got a pink flamingo crypt, which has actually been growing really well. I added this later on in the tank and it seemed to do really well. This is my favorite plant in here probably right now. This is a Iron Maiden or Rosen Maiden crypt. It's like a big flat one, and I've actually struggled to grow these at the shop, and in here it's just done phenomenally, and it's actually sent out a little baby. So I'm really satisfied with that. Another nice little cool plant. Yeah, the boosters grew back, which I'm proud of as well. There's a nice big fat Amazon sword there, which has sent out runners, and I've never tried to plant those runners again because I don't want to overpopulate the tank with Amazon swords, but that's really cool. I am starting to really enjoy this tank. I think the roots has been a really cool addition as well. I think it's cool to note as well with this tank, I've never changed the water or sucked the substrate out. All I've done to this tank is top it up when it evaporates, and it evaporates pretty quickly because there's all these plants in it. When it evaporates, I just top it up with normal town water and I just give it a bit of dechlorinator. But besides that, I add fertilizer to the tank probably every 2 weeks when I do the top up. And I've never changed the water. I've never cleaned out the canister filter that it's run on, and I've never sucked out the substrate. So this is a really good example for a beginner tank. To me, this looks like an advanced aquarist's attempt at a tank. And I did have a lot of help from Jason. Jason pretty much set the whole thing up for me with the hardscape. I planted it out after because it was like a afterthought, the plants, but Jason pretty much set it up. So it was like an expertly done aquascape. This is as simple as it gets for an aquarium. Like I said, I don't change the water in here. I pretty much do nothing. I just feed it. This is one of the easiest things to take care of in the house. I've got a dog, and the dog's like 1,000 times harder to take care of than this tank. I think the houseplants help a lot to filter it and keep it nice and neat, but also all of these plants in here are doing a great job. And I think the other thing too with this tank is that it's just really lightly stocked right now. So I can definitely bolster that up now and add as many fish as I want in here. But when I started it, I started really light. So that might be another cool piece of advice for you guys. Yeah, this tank's only gonna get cooler. I'm gonna keep you guys updated with how it goes. This is just like something I really wanted to show you guys because I haven't really done setups on the channel for a while. And let me know if you want me to see me do things like this, because I do a lot of breeding, but I've not really done much tank stuff like setups for years. And it's just been really refreshing and honestly really fun to set this up and just watch it do its thing, let Mother Nature do its thing. And I do have a setup video of this. You guys can go and watch. This is the tank 6 months on. Yeah, thanks for watching the video, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.